Hi everybody, Kirsty, Goddess of Neptune here. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to this special astrology report on the Hollywood vampires. And I will say just now, this will be ideal for Hollywood vampires fans. But those of you who don't know the Hollywood vampires, you may find it interesting. But if you're not really a fan of the Hollywood vampires, you don't follow them, you're not interested, it's probably not the report for you. This is a special one-off that I'm doing for my channel. And full disclosure here, I am quite biased because I've been to a couple of their concerts this year. Absolutely amazing. So from that, I was drawn to actually looking at the astrology of their opening gig of this year's tour, as well as the closing gig. And interestingly, looking at the charts of the four main members of the band, because I appreciate there are 7, but looking at the 4 main members of the band, their charts against the event. And very interesting in terms of what I found. And I will say as well that it's based on my interpretations of what I see in the astrological data that's presented to me, based on the information that's out there in the public domain. Okay, so it may not even resonate with you at all. And as I say, if you're not really a follower of the Hollywood vampires, you're not interested, then it's not for you. But those of you who are, hopefully you'll find this interesting. So I'm going to pull up the charts, but before I do, Hollywood Vampires, of course, an American rock band, and made up of Alice Cooper, Joe Perry, Johnny Depp and Tommy Henriksen, as well as Chris Wise, Glenn Sobel and Buck Johnson. So they're all part of this band who are, quite frankly, amazing. And again, that's my biased viewpoint there, but they are amazing. And they really rocked Europe, the UK, and also America. They did a few dates in America this summer. So, you know, from the beginning of June up until the end of July, they were touring and really giving it their all. And they've had great feedback, great reviews from people that have attended, including myself. I went to see them in Europe and also in the UK. Absolutely outstanding. So, you know, I just wanted to say that first and foremost. Amazing, absolutely amazing. Can't say that word enough, really. So without further ado, let's jump into the charts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all pull up the chart which shows the opening night's gig. Okay, and you should see that on the screen there. So this was the 8th of June this year, 2023, and they started their tour in Bucharest. Okay, so Bucharest, Romania. And I've just put a time on there of 8 o'clock because it's around that time that they sort of come onto stage after the support act, etc. So this is a freeze frame of the cosmos at the time of the opening of the gig, if you like. And you'll see colours because I tend to draw lines on the chart as I'm looking at it, and I'm drawn to certain aspects. I will highlight them so I can then refer to them in these reports. And there's quite a few that I've got. So I've needed to do that because there's a lot of information to get through. So hopefully you'll stick with me, and I will endeavour to put timestamps on when I get into the members of the band, because I appreciate you might just be drawn to looking at certain members. Okay, so this is the event. This is the opening event. And you'll see that there's some red lines, there's green lines, and also some purpley lines. Okay, so in terms of this green triangle that's in the middle, this represents a trine. Okay, so we've got various trines going on. We've got Pluto down here, okay, the planet of transformation, deep transformation. We've got Ceres up here, okay, dwarf planet associated with expansion, but not as powerful as Jupiter, of course, because that's a gas giant, but there is expansive properties to Ceres. And then we have over here Mercury and Vesta. So Mercury in terms of communication and Vesta in terms of that sacred flame within. So a trine in astrology is positive aspects. And this showed me when I saw this information that deep transformation that's been going on in the collective generally, there's almost this expansion of how transformation is taking place because of lighting that spark within and following what we want to do, what we're passionate about, and expressing that, Vesta, with Mercury. And it's also in accordance with our worth and values because it's Taurus energy. And there is that expansion of that with Ceres. So we're able to expand on what we love and what we enjoy, and we're not afraid to express it. And that's enabling that deep transformation within all of us. So you could look at it as an event for the collective generally, but also the audience at this concert. So of course, they're there, presumably, because they all like the band, they want to see the band. So it sparks that fire within, Vesta. It's something that kind of lights that flame within. And they want to express that in the way of being in the audience at such a gig. So there is great expansive opportunity to do so with Ceres. And Pluto is that transformation. So it's enabling people to perhaps get out of their shell, you know, to actually embrace the concert, embrace the fun and the excitement of it, the atmosphere of being at a gig, at a concert with kindred souls who are all there for the same reason. That can really enable transformation within people, because it gives people the confidence to do more of it. It makes you happy. It brings that joy. So it's amazing in terms of that. And we also have a sextile going on with the purple lines here, okay, which is another positive aspect in astrology, between the moon, which at this time was in Aquarius, going across to Chiron in Aries. So anybody following my astrology reports previously will know I've spoken about Chiron in Aries quite a bit, because Chiron represents our healing journey in this lifetime. So in our own natal charts, wherever Chiron was when we were born, gives us a great indication of what we are destined to heal in this lifetime. And with Chiron up in the sky in Aries, that is all about the warrior self, the sovereignty. So we've been needing to heal our sovereignty as part of our overall healing journey. And with the moon being in sextile to Chiron at this particular point, again, this is the, you know, the feelings and emotions working in harmony with healing our sovereignty, because we feel good, engrossed in the atmosphere, enjoying it, loving life. It's helping us heal our sovereignty. It's helping us become more certain in our warrior self. You know, it's all about the self. Aries is about the self. So this is about that enjoyment of being who we are in that particular moment and feeling good about it. And also moon in Aquarius, you know, there is a sort of uniqueness to that as well. Aquarius is very much about connecting with others because it rules the 11th house, but also there is a uniqueness and an individualistic trait to Aquarians. So we feel good for being who we are, even if it's not like other people, because we're individual and we're all here. Okay, we're around like-minded individuals, kindred souls, because we're all here to see the band and we want to have a great time. But we can also be individual in our own right as well. And that's also helping the healing journey. And notwithstanding that, Chiron is also sextile to the sun at this particular point, and the sun was in Gemini at this moment. So being able to sort of, with that soul essence, kind of be inquisitive and curious. And perhaps, you know, there was that sense of that because it's the opening gig. What is this going to be all about? You know, what can we expect from this? And that excitement also there as well from the soul essence point of view. And as part of the collective in general at this moment in time for people at the gig, it also includes the band. So band members, you know, it's potentially also enabling their transformation, because there's going to be that expansion of the sacred flame energy, because what they're doing on stage is fueling that sacred flame within. It's Goddess Bridget energy. It is a sacred flame. So the creativity that comes forth from that, from them doing what they love to do on stage, Sarah's expanding that and thus enabling this natural transformation that's taking place, that's also serving the audience at the same time, because the moon is there in sextile to Chiron. It's a feeling good energy. There is that cathartic feeling to it, because both the sun and the moon being in sextile to Chiron, there is almost this king and queen aspect of the healing journey, which is, of course, emphasizing the sovereignty within our feelings and within our soul essence at this point. So the red lines represent a square, and I haven't drawn the square in the middle there because it would have got too messy with all the lines. But you could probably see them faintly on the chart itself. Okay, but we've got the south node in Scorpio, we've got Venus in Leo, we've got Pluto, of course, in Aquarius at that point, because he has since retrograded back to Capricorn. So this was at this moment in time. Okay, it's important to remember that. And also North Node and Jupiter over here in Taurus. So, you know, North Node is all about our purpose, our guiding light. South Node can represent karmic situations. It can bring up things of the past. It can also make us aware of illusions and that sort of thing. Venus, of course, all about that love, and being in Leo, very much that expression of happiness. You know, that is kind of love on top of love, isn't it, really? But that's challenging the transformation energy, perhaps. And it might just be because, you know, it's that sort of that feeling of being at a concert when maybe we've not been out for, you know, a good couple of years because of what's been going on in the world. And it's that sort of that chance to really kind of break free in that way, to be happy with that Venus energy, but almost that kind of deep transformation of everything that's been going on could be a bit challenging, especially with Jupiter there expanding that as well. But I feel more drawn to what's going on with the trine and the sextiles, to be honest with you, in relation to this gig. Okay, that's just highlighting, the square is just highlighting the other stuff that's going on in the astrology where there may be challenges. And that's certainly something that's been, you know, present for quite a while leading up to this point in the astrology. Bearing in mind that was the 8th of June, okay, for that particular one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing that one, and I'm going to pull up the chart for Mr. Alice Cooper. And just to remind you once again that this is based on the information in the public domain, okay, with regards to sort of birth dates and birth times, etc. And where I haven't got a birth time for the individual, I have used 12, as in 12 noon, because that gives us as astrologers that insight into the planetary alignments. Okay, it's kind of the best guess we can use when we haven't got an exact birth time. But here we do have Alice's based on what's in the public domain. Okay, and lots of drawings all over this chart, as you'll see. But this is for the opening. So what we've got here is we've got two wheels. We've got the inner wheel, which is Alice's natal chart, and then we've got the outer wheel, which is the event. Okay, and imagine that freeze frame again of the cosmos at that point. Okay, and this is where we can see what the planets were doing against Alice's chart and how that could influence his energy in this moment in time. So, you know, and I start drawing, and then it looks like an amazing little picture on here, okay, just randomly. But you can see I've put the red lines on here, and I've also got the green aspects for the trine, and there's also some yellow on there as well, okay, just to draw your attention. So the trine that I was mentioning about the sacred flame, okay, so here is where we'll look at the house system, because it's against somebody's natal chart, so it gives you that context. And I should point out as well that Alice is an Aquarius sun, okay, so he is an Aquarius, and if I can just find his sun, there we go, in the 4th house, okay, sun in Aquarius, so he's a 4th house sun. And, you know, the sun itself in Gemini is actually in the 9th house for his chart, you know, transiting through the 9th house. So that's all about learning and discovery. It's voyage type energy. So the soul essence of the cosmos is almost taking him on a journey, and it's kickstarting this tour. So it is the start of a journey, really, in that respect. And interestingly, alongside that, you'll see I've drawn a yellow line because we've got Juno next to the sun, which is an asteroid, divine feminine energy. associated with love and marriage, and you know, very much heightening the, you know, the sun energy, that kind of the positive, loving vibes, heightened by the sun, okay, in Gemini, of course. But what was interesting is that Juno is exactly conjunct Alice's Uranus at this moment in time, and Uranus is all about change. So when it comes to how Alice might be changing and transforming because of the start of this gig, you know, and he's performed for many, many years, but, you know, this particular moment, Juno is there giving that nurturing, loving energy to his Uranus, okay? And it's all about that discovery of self, being on a journey of some kind and enabling that change. So embarking on that quest, embarking on that journey, enabling that change in terms of Alice, and having the soul essence of the cosmos there supporting that as well. We've also got over here in his 8th house of power, we've got Uranus himself up in the sky in Taurus, worth and values, conjunct Alice's North Node. So with regards to Alice's purpose, you know, that's all about knowing his power when it comes to his worth and values, and knowing his purpose when it comes to his worth and values. So Uranus is just there, heightening the energy of change, along with Vesta and Mercury. So again, the sacred flame and expression of that, and heightening it because this is where the power comes forth. So this is all about change in this moment in time, that the sun is, of course, heightening in his own planet of change, and the planet of change is heightening his purpose in his house of power. So a very, very powerful moment for him as a performer, and of course as the lead singer of this band. Here in the 7th house we have the North Node. So I've just mentioned his North Node. We have the North Node, which at that time was also in Taurus. So this is big energy when it comes to worth and values and purpose, true guiding light when it comes to worth and values. And that is conjunct, 1 degree off, Alice's Ceres. So that expansive energy within Alice's house of relationships with people, places, things is also being heightened by that overarching purpose. So again, relationships with people, of course, he's connecting with people through the band, through the crew, through the audience, relationships with places where they're performing and what he's doing, and relationships with things, the art of performing potentially, but could be other things as well, you know, and only he would know that if that resonates. But truly that guiding light and enabling that expansion from within the soul, because it's within his natal chart, when it comes to his worth and values, enabling him to connect in his relationships with people, places, things, 7th house, and expanding that. So expanding those opportunities with Jupiter there as well in Taurus. It's a big thing about self-worth, owning his worth at that point. Let's not forget Chiron is in Aries, which is also in his 7th house. And this is where astrology charts are fascinating, because we have a bit of Aries and a bit of Taurus in his 7th house. Okay, so it's unique to the person. And that's why it's fascinating to look at all of this. But, you know, the healing journey in terms of his sovereignty is currently focusing on his 7th house as Chiron transits through, of relationships with people, places, things. So, you know, his sovereignty as a lead singer of a band is really being expanded. Jupiter and Ceres both going on there as well. So that's really positive energy, I would say, for Mr. Alice Cooper. Down here, I've just put a circle around the moon just to show that at this time the moon was in Aquarius and it was transiting through Alice's 5th house of love. Okay, so, you know, emotions and feelings when it comes to being individualistic, but also connecting with other people, is very much love-based. There's an importance of that being love-based, connecting with others from a place of love, from a place of unconditional love. Okay. And up here, I just wanted to draw attention to Mars and Venus, because at this point, Mars and Venus were both in Leo and they were getting closer together. So that, of course, shows balance within ourselves, because we have masculine and feminine energies within us, regardless of gender or how we identify. We've got the action-taking side of the masculine, and we've got the nurturing side of the feminine, and that creative aspect as well. So both of these planets at this point in Leo, and both of them in Alice's 10th house of work and inner authority, of course, social status as well. So how people view him, and you know, lead singer on a stage, seeing Mars and Venus both in Leo, very much expression, should I say, I was going to say expressive and expression at the same time, that expression of his true self, because Leo is all about that, you know, that soul energy being expressed, being seen, you know, being recognized for who you are on a soul level. So having that balance between the masculine and feminine in his house of work and inner authority is definitely a commanding energy, because of the balance in his position on stage. Okay. With the sextile that I mentioned, okay, between the moon and Chiron and the sun, we've got that going, of course, from the 7th house where Chiron is, out to the 5th house, and the 7th house out to the 9th house. So very much to do with that discovery on the soul essence level, when it relates to inquisitive nature, looking at things from both sides with the Gemini side, but also how it enhances the healing journey of that sovereignty, empowerment. And remember, I said that king and queen type energy, because both the sun and the moon are feeding into Chiron in that way, with that positive sextile, that positive aspect in astrology. So, you know, making us feel good, very cathartic. And this is going on in Alice's 5th house of love, 7th house of relationships with people, places, things, and 9th house of discovery. So learning more about that as a result of this change, as a result of what is going on, you know, kickstarting this gig, kickstarting this tour, because it's the opening night of the tour, and that being a very healing, cathartic energy. Of course, with that trine, with the sacred flame, expression of that when it comes to worth and values, the expansive energy of Ceres that I mentioned, allowing that grounded energy in as well, because Ceres is in Virgo. And then, of course, with Pluto enabling that transformation. It's like a rebirth moment here on the stage and for the audience as well. So there we have it. That's Mr. Alice Cooper. So I'll stop sharing that one. And let's move on to Mr. Joe Perry. Okay, so I'm just going to pull up the chart for Joe Perry. There we go. Right, Mr. Joe Perry, guitar legend, absolutely outstanding. And the whole band were outstanding. And this is my bias coming in again, but I'm sure if those of you watching love the Hollywood Vampires and you went to see them, I am sure you will agree with me wholeheartedly. But this man and the way that he uses his guitar to express himself, absolutely phenomenal. They're all amazing, but I was blown away by Joe and really kind of in awe when I was watching him. I was just watching him at one point perform. Absolutely outstanding. And, you know, he's been in the business for a long time, as most of them have in that band. So, and it really showed, actually, it really showed in their quality of performance. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But Joe, you know, of course, Aerosmith guitarist, and with Hollywood Vampires didn't disappoint in that respect. Absolutely. So different pictures on here, as you'll see, because we've got different aspects, and they're in different places for Joe's chart. So Joe's natal chart is the inner wheel, and the transits of the opening gig are the outer wheel. So Joe is a Virgo. He is a Virgo sun, okay? And he is also a fourth house sun, like Alice, okay? So that's very much the soul essence within the foundations, okay? It could be that foundations and family are important to Joe, and also to Alice as well, I should mention. But Joe's got a Gemini rising, okay? Same as Tommy, actually. So interesting, because the houses are similar because of that reason, because we look at the rising, that gives you your first house in astrology. Okay, so what we have here, let's dive into Joe's chart. We've got the moon over here. So for Joe, it's in his 9th house. So that's the house of discovery. So this may be a discovery of his emotions. It could be really learning and understanding what makes him feel good when it comes to being on stage. And just being on stage would probably make him feel good, because he's doing something that he loves to do, and it shows. But this is like, you know, the voyage, the quest, 9th house, being individual in his own right with that Aquarian energy, and feeling good about that, because he knows his talent in terms of, you know, what he can do on the guitar, and you know, him actually being able to feel good about that. So with that, there is, of course, a line going from the 9th house to the 3rd house opposite. And that's because his Pluto, which is in Leo, is opposite. It's directly opposite at, well, I say directly, it's 18 degrees. The moon was 19 degrees, 1 degree off. But, you know, there we go. It's pretty much exactly opposite. And the 3rd house is all about expression and communication. So where there's an opposition, it can come across as challenging energy. So it could be that, you know, that deep transformation within him, within the depths of his soul, might be being challenged, but he's feeling good about being individual. It may just be something he's discovering at the start of this tour, you know, exactly how individual he can be in his own right, how unique he can be in his own right when it comes to this. When it comes to the tour, you know, that's going to go on for a couple of months after this. This is the very beginning point, remember, and the moon will move. So his Pluto won't, but the moon will move. This is a snapshot at this particular time. So it's a bit of a discovery for him in terms of his feelings and his emotions. And we've also got over here in his 12th house, which is the subconscious house, we've got Uranus, the planet of change, in Taurus, worth and values, conjunct his Vesta. Now, Vesta is also there, as you can see, at 24 degrees, along with Mercury, 25 degrees. And it just so happens that this is happening in Joe's 12th house. So it's hidden, it's subconscious. It's the spiritual house, okay? So there could be something going on a deep level in terms of change when it comes to his sacred flame energy within, because we've got change on top of Vesta. We've also got Vesta on top of Vesta and Mercury on top of Vesta. So there is that heightening there of expression when it comes to worth and values in terms of what really sparks that flame within, and changing it up if needed, because Uranus is reminding us where things do need to change, certainly when it comes to our worth and values. And the sun is there also for Joe, transiting through the 12th house. So we know the sun's in Gemini. And again, this is where his 12th house is a bit bigger. We've got partly Taurus and partly Gemini, because, you know, a lot of his first house is Gemini as well. But it shows that, you know, from a soul essence point of view, there could be stuff going on beneath the surface here for him. And that could be why, you know, the moon, certainly being in the 9th house, is that discovery of emotions and feelings connected with all of that. Now, down here, we have Mars and Venus, as I mentioned with Alice as well, in terms of where that was in his chart. And for Joe, this is happening in his 3rd house. So Mars and Venus there, that balance within his expression and communication. So how he communicates in terms of being seen, being recognized, Leo energy, and that full expression of the soul, needing to ensure that he is transforming and evolving, because we've got his Pluto, remember, in his natal chart in the 3rd house. But that heightened Leo energy as well is bringing the fire, you know, through. So it's bringing that kind of flame energy naturally with the fire energy. But that balance is there within his expression. So expression through his instrument, and the balance there of owning that and the sovereignty that is connected to that as well certainly comes to the fore. Okay. And when we look at the trine, so yes, Mercury and Vesta over here, and then we've got Pluto himself over there. And as I say, in Aquarius at that moment, but he's now in Capricorn as part of his retrograde. He's moved back into Capricorn, but at that moment he was in Aquarius, and Ceres down there. So that's where that energy of expansion, when it comes to the sacred flame within, can really help. And that expansion is going on within his foundations, 4th house. So his foundations are expanding, and Pluto is enabling the transformation when it comes to his power, because Pluto is in the 8th house. And again, this is hidden stuff that's going on. It's deep stuff for Joe. It feels like it's a bit deeper. It's beneath the surface, because we've got the 12th house with Vesta and Mercury, as well as the change from Uranus. But then we've got the 4th house foundations. So it's subconscious, it's deep rooted, it's foundation level, this expansion that's going on, transforming his power. Okay. And the King and Queen energy in terms of the Sun and Moon and the sextile to Chiron. Chiron is in the 11th house. So the healing asteroid there, the wounded warrior, as he's also known, represents our healing journey in this lifetime. Okay. So this is on a collective level. Chiron in Aries, that's sovereignty. So as part of our healing journey, we need to own who we are, recognize we're a warrior self, and make sure that we are taking care of ourselves and being empowered in that way. So the moon being in the 9th house, his discovery of how that's impacting, you know, his sovereignty, because we've got Pluto over here in the 8th, you know, his personal power, and also how it could be attributed to his spiritual journey as well, you know, with the 12th house, deep-rooted subconscious stuff going on there, and how that is helping him transform into more of that sovereign being. And I'm just interested to see where his Chiron is. So his Chiron is over here in the 6th house in Sagittarius. So that's in a fire sign energy, and Sagittarius actually rules the 9th house. So that is all about a quest. That is all about discovery. So, you know, this lifetime, his healing journey could be about, you know, his daily routines, 6th house, being of service, 6th house, and also, you know, well-being. So health and well-being is part of our healing journey anyway, because we want to feel good, don't we? But in terms of, you know, his quest for discovery in relation to that, or generally going on journeys, traveling, how that might impact his day-to-day routines, you know, in terms of that. So he's having to maybe balance that out, especially because we've got, you know, in the opposite house, all of that energy in the 12th house with the change, sacred flame within, just opposing his Chiron. So it's almost like, okay, this tour, yeah, okay, it's going to be a lot of days on the road, as it were, and so there will be a lot of travel, and maybe in terms of that sacred flame within, yes, it sparks that fire within. I love doing it. I'm happy expressing myself. This is all about worth and values, because remember, all that energy there with Mercury, Vesta and Uranus is in Taurus. So that's about deeply in his 12th house what his worth and values are when it comes to all of this, when it comes to expressing what he loves to do, and how that impacts on his daily routines with what's going on in the 6th house. You know, part of that healing journey for him is all about understanding his discovery of what needs to maybe change in terms of being of service, just generally life journey. It just feels to me like it's life journey is part of his healing journey. And that is also drawing me back to Pluto and the fact that, you know, it's been quite intense of late with what Pluto is doing. And, you know, it is heavy, intense, deep transformation. And with this going on in his 8th house of power, this is where he is learning more and discovering more about what needs to transform to empower him further. So the sun and the moon as king and queen, feeding into Chiron in that way, with that sextile energy, that is the sovereignty in terms of his warrior self when it comes to connections with other people, because Chiron here in Aries is in his 11th house of connections with others. So it's very much about, you know, how he connects with others through his sovereignty, how sovereign he feels around other people, and how the moon can help him with the feelings of, okay, you may feel different, you may feel very individual, because I'm in Aquarius, I'm the moon, I'm in Aquarius, so you may be feeling a bit unique and individual, but actually that's all part of your sovereignty. And the sun is reminding him also, as with the other members of the band, because the sun is still feeding into Chiron in the same way, for everybody, it's just different houses. You know, the sun is reminding him as well, soul essence energy, you know, on deep rooted level, subconscious level, is also empowering him. And that's why it feels like it could be a bit of a, you know, a spiritual journey for him. When I use the word journey with what's going on in the 9th house, it could actually be that spiritual journey for him. And this is kickstarting the tour. So it's embarking on this deep spiritual journey, perhaps, where he can discover his true power and through his uniqueness, basically. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there for Joe. And hopefully you're all still with me. So I'm now going to pull up the chart for Mr. Tommy Henriksen. Of course, I'm leaving Mr. Depp until the end. So, you know, hopefully you'll all stick with me until then. So we've got Tommy Henriksen. I'm just going to take a sip of water. My mega pint of water, of course. So Tommy Henriksen, he is a member of Alice Cooper's band and, of course, a Hollywood vampire. And I was also really blown away by Tommy on the stage, all of them, as I said, but, you know, Tommy's got a very unique presence. And when I discovered that he is a Pisces like myself, then I could understand there is definitely a uniqueness to him, absolutely. And he has got that depth to him as a Piscean that could, you know, maybe be misunderstood by others, but Pisces tend to understand other Pisces. And he's certainly, you know, I would say he's got this unique expression, but there's depth to him. And he's also very empathic as well. And I'll come on to that in a bit because of what I'm going to show you. But this is very much about, you know, Tommy being part of the band as well. He's a member of the band in its own right. And being a Pisces with a Gemini rising, because he's also got a Gemini rising, just like Joe. And this is where some of the similarities with the house system you might notice. But, you know, Gemini rising, okay, so others might see him because your rising is all about your social personality and how other people see you. It's almost like a mask, not in a bad way, but it might be that, you know, he comes across as different. He's a Pisces soul. But the Gemini rising, you know, there's curiosity there. So the audience could watch him and they're like intrigued by him, because with Gemini, there's curiosity, there's inquisitiveness, you want to investigate a bit more. There can be two sides going on as well. So it's intrigue and interest. And also Gemini risings, you know, they can communicate quite well as well. So Joe would be the same in that respect as well, that people are intrigued, you know, Gemini rising. And of course, he's got a Virgo sun. So he's very much got that earth energy, that groundedness. But Virgos can also be quite self-critical. So that's where, as I was saying about Joe, you know, he might be on that journey of discovering truly how powerful he is through the course of this tour. But Tommy, you know, Gemini rising, so there's intrigue to him. There's a bit of mystery there. But the Pisces soul is also there. And, you know, maybe I can see it because of being a Piscean, but Pisceans are very unique. And, you know, I mean this in the nicest way, because I've had it said about me before. But there is that kind of, it's a bit bordering on it with Aquarius, actually, but there is that sort of alien type essence. And I mean that in the nicest way, because I've had it referred to myself. So you could actually say Alice Cooper, you know, with the Aquarius sun, there's also an element of that, because it's that uniqueness, that individualistic, you know, not a lot of people understand you. And the same can be said for Pisces, because not a lot of people understand the Pisces. And it is a very spiritual sign. And, you know, I feel that, you know, Tommy does have that spiritual essence. That's my own perceptions of it. Okay. But he certainly loves to perform. Absolutely. Without a doubt, as they all do, So let's look at his chart. So just like Joe, we've got the moon in the 9th house of discovery. So he's also discovering how his uniqueness makes him feel. And vice versa, you know, how being unique makes him feel, but how his feelings make him unique as well, in that respect. And that discovery that's going on for him, again, this is the start of the tour. Okay, there's going to be 2 months ahead. You know, fast forward a couple of months to where we've ended on, you know, the 30th of July, which was their final gig of this particular tour. So, you know, this is that quest for discovery and how the emotions are flowing at this moment, being individualistic. And, you know, what we have over here is quite profound. So we have the sun on top of his moon, exactly 17 degrees in the 12th house. So I should point out that Tommy's sun is over here in the 10th house. He's a 10th house sun. Okay, that's where Pisces is for him, because he's a Gemini rising. But the sun, soul essence of the cosmos, right on top of his moon, that's in Gemini. Okay, because not only has he got that Gemini rising, he's also got a moon in Gemini as well. And it's going on in the 12th house. So there's deep feelings and emotions here. And again, that inquisitiveness, and potentially even from himself, the inquisitiveness about how it's going to go. How's the tour going to go? What's this gig, you know, the opening gig going to be like? There's kind of that intrigue and curiosity, and this sun is emphasizing that for Tommy, but on a soul level, on a deep level, 12th house. We've also got Vesta in the 12th house, just like for Joe. So the sacred flame within. Okay, so in relation to his worth and values, Taurus energy, the sacred flame within of what lights him up. So let's go with performing. So this lights him up, this, he loves it. It's his energy, his flame he's bringing forth to perform. He's expressing that, and he's enabling this change to happen as a result. And opposite that, in the 6th house, we have Ceres. So Ceres is exactly opposite Vesta, because they're both 24 degrees. So there is that expansion, okay, when it comes to day-to-day routines and well-being and being of service, there is expansive energy to that. But opposition energy can be like a push-pull. So it might be that, okay, things are expanding and I'm learning more. This is the start of a journey, because his Ceres is in Sag as well. So it's like the start of a journey. It's opening up a journey. And, you know, does that mean that things have to change? Because of course, Uranus is over here. But the most important thing is working with the energy, with that sacred flame energy of Vesta and Ceres, to actually expand that through the performance. With regards to Mr. Saturn up here, who is in the house of the divine, he is in Pisces. So us Pisces are getting quite a tough time of it at the moment. Although the Pisces energy softens Saturn a bit, he is in the house of the divine and he's serving up lessons. Okay, so regardless of what your sign is, he's in Pisces, so he's in the house of the divine and he is serving up lessons. He's saying, have you learnt those lessons from the past 3 years when he was in Aquarius? Because if not, let's go round again and let's just show you what you need to know to get you in alignment with your spiritual truth, with your soul's truth. So the fact that he's in Pisces and he's 5 degrees off Tommy's sun could be quite profound for Tommy. And that's in his 10th house of work, inner authority and social status. So, you know, his soul essence is in his work. It's in his inner authority of what he does for work. And Saturn is like a taskmaster energy, getting us in alignment. So of course, if he's in alignment with his truth and he's performing, and that is his sacred flame energy, then Saturn, the Saturn energy is going to be a breeze because he's in alignment with his spiritual truth. And he's a Piscean. So the Piscean energy is heightened even more so, especially because Neptune's there as well, but through his work. So this is happening through his work, and his Chiron is also in Pisces. So, you know, it's a sensitive sign. So healing journey for him may have been a sensitive journey on his life because it's in Pisces, and it may relate to the masculine energy because Mars is there as well. But remember, Chiron himself is in Aries. So there's empowerment of the sovereign self going on here. And if Tommy is in alignment with his soul's truth, performing and, you know, utilizing that sacred flame energy, then Saturn is, you know, delivering karmic returns because, and they would be in the form of rewards, for example, because he's delivering karmic returns, which is either further lessons or rewards. And this is all about indulging in that Piscean spiritual energy. And because we've got the moon going across there into Chiron, so again, it's that 9th house discovery feeding into Chiron in terms of connections with others and also with the sun, you know, that hidden, deep-rooted soul essence. And remember, the sun is on top of his moon. So how the feelings are going on with intrigue and the curious nature, you know, the curiosity of how this might be, because the sun is right there expanding everything. It's helping enhance the sovereignty, which is part of the healing journey as well. So being more empowered as a sovereign self, being more empowered as the unique self, okay, the sovereign self, the warrior self is the unique self, and feeling good about that. Remember, there's that cathartic feeling because it's the king and queen flowing into Chiron in that way. So that is helping the energy, and certainly when it comes to connections with other people. So of course, and just like Joe, because Chiron's in the same place, connecting with others, connecting with other band members, connecting with friends and family, connecting with crew, connecting with the audience. This is that empowerment of warrior self and being comfortable and confident in this from a soul level and from an emotional level as well. Okay. We've also got over here Pluto himself, deep transformation, conjunct Tommy's Vesta in his 8th house of power. So again, deep transformation when it comes to his sacred flame energy in the house of power. So it is that empowerment of him doing what he loves to do, and it's supporting that energy. So Pluto is actually supporting that energy and the deep transformation that's going that's going within, in order to enable Tommy to express his individuality, because Pluto is in Aquarius at this moment in time. So it's very much, you know, his uniqueness in relation to his personal power is something that you know, he can bring forth with that sacred flame energy as well. But there's a lot of empowerment energy going on, I feel, here for Tommy. Okay, and Mars and Venus for Tommy down here are actually in different houses for Tommy. So we've got Venus in the 2nd house and we've got Mars in the 3rd house. So yes, there's balance because they're in the same sign. Leo, that recognition, being seen for his true soul self, the fire energy that's brought forth from that. There's still balance, but recognizing that Venus energy is actually nurturing him when it comes to worth and values, because Venus is in the 2nd house. And Mars is helping him with his expression and communication. So when it comes to him being recognized for what he's doing and being that full embodiment of self up on stage, Mars is empowering him, that masculine drive to express, communicate, to be seen as who you are as a performer and a musician, you know. And Venus is there nurturing the worth and values. You are worthy of this. This is in alignment with your values. You deserve to be seen and recognized on stage. There we go. That's the balance. Okay. But also in the 2nd house, you know, we've got Lilith in Cancer there. And Lilith is the shadow feminine side. So we've got that feminine energy in the 2nd house, and it's enabling the shadow side of doubts, fears, anxieties, anything like that that needs to be addressed, which again is helpful for us. Lilith is a great teacher in that respect, because she can help us address where these kind of doubts come from, for instance. And, you know, being in the sign of Cancer, that is divine feminine energy. And then you've got Venus there in Leo. So this is very much about that love, happiness, and the nurturing energy. So I do feel that any doubts, any little doubts or anxieties or anything like that would have been nurtured through by Venus and enabling Tommy to be balanced in both of those things. Embodiment of the masculine energy to express himself for who he is and to feel worthy of that as well. Okay, and the trine, you know, with Ceres, Pluto and Mercury in Vesta is going on in the 4th house, 12th house and 8th house. So this is to do with the hidden stuff, the power house and the foundations. So again, a bit like Joe, you know, within the foundations and deep rooted stuff going on, it could also be a spiritual journey for Tommy, and also relating to his empowerment of self as well, for being who he is and expressing himself in that way. Okay, so that's Tommy. Right, let's take some more water before we move on to Mr. Depp. I'm excited about this one because I did notice some very interesting things. Now, before I do this, I will say that if you've not checked out my astrology report that I did 16th of May, it was the day of the Cannes Film Festival, the premiere, so 16th of May, okay, you can check it on my channel, and it was before the film festival itself. So I did it before the opening, before the premiere of Johnny's film, Jean de Barry. And I mentioned in that astrology video, based on what I could see, and I chose a time of when the red carpet was going to be, and it was very profound, because the sun was right on top of his Mercury in the 10th house. So the soul essence of the cosmos was on top of his expression in his house of work and inner authority. Very powerful. And there was also stuff going on in his house of power. That's where his pot of fortune is. So I predicted at that time that this was the point for him to reclaim his power. Since that time, look at what's happened in Johnny's life on his journey. Absolutely profound. And I'm so pleased about that, because it was in the astrology that this was about karmic returns, karmic rewards, and him reclaiming his power. And I feel he's done that and is still doing that 100%. So if you've not seen that video, check it out, because it was before the actual premiere. And I will say as well that as they took their seats to watch this film, Jupiter entered Taurus at that exact moment. And that just blew me away, because Jupiter, massive expansive energy, Taurus, worth and values. So it was a massive moment for him. Anyway, I won't labour that point. I'm going to pull up the chart and let's have a look at the opening gig for Hollywood Vampires for Johnny. Okay, so we've got this one here. This is it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Lots of things going on here and lots of arrows, as we can see. So first of all, let's just say Johnny is a Gemini and he has a Leo rising. Okay, so he's a Gemini, so there's natural intrigue when it comes to Johnny, and curiosity, certainly. With a Leo rising, there is a lot of confidence that could come across, but he is fairly introverted, which some people would not even expect because of his Leo rising, because he might come across as quite, you know, cocky in some ways. And I don't believe he is, but that's how a Leo rising could come across, because, you know, it's sort of owning themselves, knowing exactly what they're worth and not being afraid to be that person. It's the courageous lion, isn't it? You know, so that can confuse people. I will just say that. It's very powerful energy to kind of emit. But yeah, what we have here is we have the moon in Johnny's 7th house. Okay, and the moon is only 4 degrees away from his Saturn. So 7th house, remember I was saying with Alice, it's the house of relationships with people, places, things. And, you know, Saturn is there, which can be, as I say, that taskmaster type energy. It's about getting things done. It can relate to karmic situations. It can be concerning business, you know, there's a variety of things. But with the moon there, it could be actually heightening karmic situations, the feelings of karmic situations, because the moon is basically conjunct his Saturn in the 7th house of relationships with people, places, things. So, you know, karmic associations with people, karmic associations with things, karmic associations with places. And, you know, this opening night of the gig, very much, you know, a lot of eyes were actually on him, or, you know, anticipating how it was all going to be, you know, with him being on stage and everything. So, you know, there is natural intrigue, definitely. And that feeling of, okay, you know, there may have been karmic situations going on. This is about feeling good as that unique individual, and, you know, being able to connect in terms of relationships with people, places, things, with the right things, in this way. Okay, I mentioned just now about what I said with his pot of fortune being in his 8th house of power. So his fortune lies in his power, but it's also part of his healing journey to overcome that, because Chiron is right there. His Chiron is right there, and you know, in Pisces as well. So Saturn is, of course, there in Pisces, as I mentioned before, and you know, he's on top of the pot of fortune, just 1 degree off. And so, you know, this is about, again, you know, the karmic returns when it comes to his fortune within his power. And this is about, you know, the gig, the tour itself, how that's going to enable him to truly embrace more of his healing journey when it comes to his power. So I mentioned about reclaiming his power. And this is part of that. It's still part of that journey that he's doing, because Saturn is still there, serving up the karmic rewards and, you know, getting him in alignment with his spiritual truth, with his soul's truth, in order to bring that empowerment forward and in order for him to heal more in this lifetime. And Chiron himself is up here, okay, transiting through Johnny's 9th house. So more discovery about his sovereignty. It feels like as he goes through this, and certainly from the past, you know, a few months since that premiere, you know, actually learning more about his sovereignty. And it's all connected to his healing journey. It's all connected to his power. It's all connected to his karmic associations that he's had to release, and how he feels about them now, you know, with the moon being there on his Saturn in the 7th house. You know, his North Node is in the 9th house as well, in Taurus. So worth and values, you know, sorry, the North Node, apologies. I'm obviously getting tired here. I'm talking about the Hollywood vampires too much, clearly. But no, the North Node is there in his 9th house in Taurus at this point, because they have since changed, okay? It's important to bear that in mind. This was the 8th of June. So, you know, the guiding light when it comes to worth and values and how he is discovering 9th house, what that's all about. And he's discovering 9th house, his sovereignty, as part of the healing that's going on. And there's expansion of that within his soul, because Chiron is there close to his Jupiter in Aries. So it's that warrior self. And he's had to fight a lot, you know, to get to that point. But perhaps he's now discovering, because of 9th house, exactly how sovereign he is. And I mentioned sovereign, so let's just focus now on the sun and the moon and them feeding into Chiron. So the moon being in the 7th house, feeding into Chiron in the 9th, and the sun in the 11th, feeding into Chiron in the 9th. So the sun when it comes to connections with other people, and the moon when it comes to relationships with people, places, things. So very much so about how the king and queen of the universe, the sun and the moon, are helping Johnny with his empowerment of sovereignty and his healing journey in relation to that. And how that's connected to his purpose as well. Now, the sun being in the 11th at this point in time is conjunct his sun, because of course his birthday is the day after this, the 9th of June. So the sun is getting close to the point of a solar return. And there we have it. So the sun at this point of their opening gig is heightening his soul. The soul of the universe is heightening his soul. And that's in the 11th house of connections with others. So again, connecting with other bandmates, connecting with crew, friends and family, connecting with the audience. This is massive soul essence energy. And that soul essence energy is assisting his healing journey with Chiron in Aries. And it's allowing him to feel good because of the sextile to the moon as well, which is allowing karmic situations to be healed. So it's very profound what's going on with Mr. Depp. And I've got lots of arrows here because I wanted to draw your attention to Mercury up here in Taurus at this moment, exactly on top of his Mercury in Taurus in the 10th house of work. Expression and communication. You know, not only have you got the sun on top of his sun, you've got Mercury on top of his Mercury exactly in his 10th house. You know, this is where the sacred flame energy is as well. And of course, Uranus with change. So getting him in line with his worth and values, allowing the change that's happening, allowing him to express himself from that sacred flame within of what lights him up. Performing, you know, he has said he was a musician before he was an actor. That's his passion. So of course, this energy of Mercury being there is going to really enable him to use that power to express that sacred flame within and enable that change, Uranus, to happen. And this is all in accordance with his worth and values, because it's something that he wants to do. So, wow, the sun on the sun, Mercury on Mercury, 11th house and 10th house, connected with others and work. This is an absolutely amazing moment for him as the opening gig. And of course, the 2 months that followed it, such an amazing tour that all of them have had. And this is what was kicking off the energy for him. This is quite something. And as I mentioned, this is all to do with his healing journey. The sun is helping him realize his sovereignty. You know, I can't express that enough. The sun is a massive force, and it's on top of his sun, on top of his soul. So it's allowing his soul to open up, and that is going to help him heal even more and become more of that sovereign being, and to feel good for being who he is. Okay. 12th house, what we do have here is a point of reference. So first of all, we've got Mars and Venus. So that's where Mars and Venus were for him, hidden. So this is in the subconscious realms. So he has got that balance within, but perhaps, you know, that kind of desire to be seen and recognized is actually going on underneath the surface. So he's balanced, but it's beneath the surface. He can express that, but it's beneath the surface. And even though I say that, because he's a Leo rising, we're able to get that sense from him, from watching him, because it's outwardly projected. So it's kind of naturally manifesting itself, if that makes sense, you know, and that's true. Our internal condition is reflected back to us in our external reality. So that love of the Leo energy and being recognized and being seen, he's got the balance going on within him in the 12th house, but he's also able to kind of convey that on stage because he's getting that love, Leo energy, back from the audience, as all of them were. But I know there was particular love in the room for Johnny. So, you know, that's something to be said, but the balance is certainly there within the 12th house. So deep rooted, and potentially something he's had to work on as part of his healing journey. The masculine drive of wanting to take action on things, but also the feminine side of needing to nurture himself through what he's had to go through. And Lilith is there on top of his North Node, okay, which is in Cancer. So his 12th house is partly Leo, partly Cancer, and Lilith is that shadow side of the feminine. So again, great teacher, because she will bring up potentially self-esteem issues or you know, anxieties and doubts. So the fact that that is on top of his North Node is almost saying, you know, are you sure you feel good enough to follow your purpose here? And you know, this is all going on a deep-rooted level, but I'm sorry, you know, the sun is kind of outshining that energy. And Mercury, on top of his Mercury, is outshining that energy because it's enabling him to truly express from the soul what it is he's passionate about, sacred flame energy. All right. Then, okay, with the trine. So yeah, Vesta up here, okay, in the 10th, as we know, we've got Pluto over here in the 6th, and we've got Ceres over here in the 2nd. So 2nd house, worth and values, 6th house, daily routine, schedules and well-being, okay, also being of service, and the 10th house of work, inner authority and social status. So when it comes to this transformation that's going on, okay, his daily routines may need to change. There may be something that needs to change here and transform in accordance with his sacred flame energy of what he wants to do in terms of how that's impacting his work, how it's impacting his inner authority, and the expansion that's going on within his worth and values, Ceres in the 2nd house. That's all working together to enable any change, any transformation that's needed, that's ultimately going to help his well-being and also contribute to the healing journey. Okay, so there you go. That's Mr. Depp. And I've got something else to show you as well, because what I did notice was, actually before I do, what I did notice was the bond between Tommy and Johnny. Now, there's clearly a bond between all of the band, and you know, they appear to certainly get on very well. There's a lot of love between them all, a lot of respect between them all. There's admiration, you know, for each other as musicians and artists in that way, but also as friends. And that's evident on stage because it ripples out to the audience. And that was certainly my perception of that and how I felt from seeing them interact with each other. And the guest stars that they've had on, you know, since that opening night throughout the tour, the admiration they have for them being on stage performing with them. And just that excitement of everybody doing what they love, being in the moment, being present and allowing almost the inner child to come forth, and really for the benefit of themselves, but for the audience as well, because they are performing, they're there to do a show, but they're also enjoying it. They're having a great time because it's a sacred flame energy. They love it and it truly shows. Extremely talented, and just the joy that kind of emanates from them from doing that. Absolutely outstanding, as I said before. So the bond is clear between all of them, and that's all 7 of them, you know, of the band. And I know I've just focused on the main 4 here, but you know, there is Chris, there is Glenn, there is Buck. I couldn't find any astrology information for Buck online, you know, in terms of date of birth or anything like that. I know that from looking at Chris, he is a Cancerian and Glenn is a Capricorn. So, you know, and that's interesting because that's like the opposite signs of each other, a bit like Joe and Tommy being Pisces and Virgo, but that almost feels to kind of like blend really well. And, you know, there's a lot of sort of air energy going on between them. But there's also that fire energy that they've got within, not only through the sacred flame energy of doing what they love to do, but, you know, within their charts as well, because it's not just about the sun sign or the moon sign, it's about the whole astrological makeup. I feel very much that the natal chart is our soul's blueprint. So, you know, looking and seeing how it all interacts together is extremely fascinating to me. But yes, I couldn't find any more information on Glenn or Chris or Buck, unfortunately, but it would have been good to have had a look at those as well, because they're all members of the band and all, you know, equally talented, because it's a group effort. You know, they're all there performing and it's one massive group effort. Absolutely amazing. So I'll get back to my point. This is also another thing that Pisces do, because, you know, I go off on a tangent really, but yeah, I noticed a particular bond between Tommy and Johnny. And I found it very sweet. It was very heartwarming. And especially, you know, kind of knowing, because of it being in the public eye about Johnny's journey with, you know, everything, it's nice to sort of see how he has evolved throughout the tour, but that also Tommy has been there by his side, really, as have the other band members. I'm not saying that they haven't at all, but Tommy particularly, that's been very noticeable. So I felt really drawn to looking at their charts together. So doing it as a kind of synastry aspect, a bit like what I do there with the natal chart and the transits. So what I've done is I've gone for the opening night, and I've looked at Johnny's chart, Tommy's, and then the event. And then I flipped it to do it the other way around. So it shows how Tommy kind of fits into Johnny's world and vice versa, certainly for the opening night, but really quite special what I found. So let's pull that up. And apologies, because I'm probably getting a bit tired, but also because we're in pre-Mercury retrograde shadow. So just putting that out there, folks. Okay, let's have a look. Right, I believe it's this one. Yes, here we go. So what we've got here, lots of arrows, as you can see. So this is looking at the charts in terms of how Tommy fits into Johnny's life. Okay, and with particular reference to the opening night. So I'm looking at the transits of the opening night and how that impacts on both their charts. But because Johnny is the one that's right in the middle, he's the inner wheel, it's all about how it fits into his chart. Okay, so it's based on his chart. And over here in the 8th house, look at this. We have got Tommy's Chiron, because I should point out, sorry, the inner wheel is Johnny, the middle wheel is Tommy, and the outer wheel is the event, is the opening gig. We've got Tommy's Chiron in Pisces on top of Johnny's Chiron in Pisces. They've got a very healing connection. And bearing in mind, this is based on their natal charts, because those two wheels, the inner and the middle wheel, are the natal charts. So in terms of how Tommy fits into Johnny's life, there is a very much a healing energy to this, and it's a spiritual one because of the Piscean energy. So I thought that was absolutely beautiful, and certainly what I can see, like when you look at them together and how they interact, it is beautiful. So this is not a surprise to me seeing this. If we look at Chiron for the event itself, and we know Chiron in Aries at this point and transiting through Johnny's 9th house, what we have is we can see the lineup here of Chiron on top of Tommy's Jupiter, and then we've got here, admittedly, there is 5 degrees difference between Tommy's and Johnny's, but we've got Jupiter there as well. So there is also this expansion to the healing journey and hope, because Jupiter brings hope as well. So the fact that they're connected together and they've got this healing connection with Chiron in Pisces, that's also very cathartic friendship, very loving in that way. There's also expansion of the healing journey as well, based on their connection and their discovery of that. So this was the opening night of the gig, and maybe this is showing the emphasis of their journey of discovery together, of just how profound their connection is and just how healing it is when it comes to the warrior self, because there's Aries energy. So their sovereignty, there's expansion of it because it's healing, because they're together and they're discovering that. Beautiful. And then look over here, 11th house, connections with others. And we've got the sun exactly conjunct Tommy's moon on top of Johnny's sun. Because we saw before just now, yeah, the sun on top of Johnny's sun, but we've got that exact conjunction there between the sun and Tommy's moon as well. So they do line up. So, you know, soul, essence, energy, feelings. So this is to do with, you know, connections with others, 11th house, and the intrigue and the kind of investigativeness or the curiosity that the Gemini energy can bring. This is about, you know, the connections with others. So think of their connection with each other, and the sun really giving that supportive energy, if you like, that warmth to what they've got when it comes to, you know, Johnny's soul energy and Tommy's emotions. So Tommy's feelings can be influenced here in a positive way by Johnny's soul and vice versa. So again, that's what makes it a really lovely, healing relationship. Over here in the 2nd house of worth and values, we have Tommy's Uranus on top of Johnny's Pluto. So where Johnny is having to transform his worth and values and to not be critical about himself, Tommy's got that energy of change and transformation within his natal chart, within his soul, within his blueprint, that can help Johnny's transformation as well when it comes to his worth and values. So this is all about that strengthening bond when it comes to transformation. But it's in the second house for Johnny. When I flip it, I'll show you what it means for Tommy, because it's going to be in a different house. But for Johnny, this connection is transformative when it comes to his worth and values. Okay. And then we have down here in Johnny's fourth house of foundations, we have Neptune, Tommy's Neptune, 4 degrees away from Johnny's Neptune. So again, that spiritual essence within the foundations, I would say, because it's deep Scorpio energy. And that's also quite powerful, because it's, to me, it shows that they both have depth to them on a spiritual level within their foundations. And they can probably go to the depths that other people might feel uncomfortable to do, because this is Scorpionic energy, but it's also spiritual because of Neptune. So that's within the foundations, and they've both got that as well. But it's in Johnny's house, Johnny's fourth house of foundations, okay? But they've both got the Neptunian energy, is what I mean by that. Okay. And then over here, we have Pluto in the 6th house. And Pluto is there a few degrees away from Tommy's Vesta, sacred flame energy. And yes, there's 7 degrees difference with Johnny's south node, but it still lines up. And, you know, that's that transformative energy. And with Tommy being able to bring forth his sacred flame energy, it's almost inspiring in a way, but it enables what Johnny may be going through when it comes to the karmic situations, because it's a south node and how he feels about that. It could be helping the transformative aspects there. We have the moon. Okay, so as we know, the moon transiting through Johnny's 7th house. And the moon is actually more in line with Tommy's Mercury. So that's that expression, because there's only 3 degrees difference there. And then, of course, we've got Johnny's Saturn. So again, the feelings of being unique and individualistic and not being ashamed of that, feeling good about that. You know, Tommy's able to express who he is as an individual person, as a unique person. And that's also helping the karmic situations, I guess, of what Johnny may have been going through with relationships with people, places, things, because he can truly see, you know, his friend expressing himself for who he is on that individualistic way. And not only that, feeling good about it. So, you know, and if we take out Tommy's chart, so just like I was just showing you Johnny's with the event, you know, the moon is there 4 degrees off Johnny's Saturn. So it's helping him feel good about relationships with people, places, things that he is learning about now, and those that he's had to release, deal with, that have been karmic in the past. Okay. So that is an example to show you there. And I'm just going to pull up now the opposite way around. Okay, so we've got Tommy now as the inner wheel. Okay, so he's the inner wheel, Johnny is the middle wheel, and the outer wheel is the event. So again, we've got the alignments that we've just seen, but they're going to be in different houses, because this is to do with Tommy's world and how Johnny fits into that. So we know about the Chiron situation. Okay, it's a very healing friendship, and it's a spiritual one as well. And for Tommy, that's his 10th house. So certainly, you know, when it comes to work and his inner authority, this is where this healing friendship is really helping him. Okay, so it's helping him in his 10th house. And we've also got Saturn lining up this way round with Johnny's pot of fortune, and also Tommy's soul and his masculine energy. So again, you know, getting them in alignment with their spiritual truth, serving up lessons or karmic returns, getting things done in that way, but from a divine perspective, is assisting with Johnny's pot of fortune when it comes to his healing journey, but also how that is also helping Tommy on a soul level when it comes to his healing journey and his masculinity as well. So it's a beautiful healing friendship that is assisting with all of this. Chiron himself transiting through the 11th house for Tommy, and that's where we have Jupiter and Jupiter. Okay, so it's not so much of as a straight line, if you like, but we've still got that expansion. So again, that's connections with others. So this is all about how Tommy can gain that sovereignty through his connections with others, and how his friendship with Johnny expands that. The moon over here, okay, transiting through Tommy's 9th house, and we've got Saturn, and then we've got Saturn. So, you know, for Tommy, this is certainly about, you know, that feeling of wanting to get things done and express oneself, because we've also got Mercury there in terms of his uniqueness, you know, in that respect. But getting things done, you know, Saturn is all about structure and rules, getting things done. Johnny's got that element as well, because, you know, that's also showing up in alignment there. And the moon, so the moon actually helping them get things done when it comes to this journey of discovery. Certainly for Tommy, it's a journey of discovery in terms of his expression of his uniqueness and how the moon can help assist with the emotions in this moment. But also because the Saturnian energy is there from Johnny when we put these together. Their friendship is also, because it's a healing friendship, there's expansion of the healing as we saw, but also Johnny can help Tommy get things done as well, and to actually encourage him to express himself as a unique individual. Over here with the sun, so we know we've got Tommy's moon in the mix, and it's in the 12th house, and there we have the sun with Johnny's sun and Tommy's moon. So this is all deep-rooted hidden stuff going on. So this is why it does feel like a spiritual healing friendship, because the soul essence of the cosmos plus Johnny's soul essence is really helping Tommy feel good, and also, you know, curious about, you know, who he really is as a deep-rooted spiritual individual. And let's not forget, you know, we've got Vesta, the sacred flame, going on in the 12th house as well, even though in Taurus. But that soul essence energy of the sun and Johnny's sun is, of course, emphasizing that as well, to allow Tommy to feel comfortable with expressing himself from that sacred flame energy of what he loves, what he enjoys. So big soul energy supporting him in terms of that. Okay, and then we've got down here in the 4th house foundations, we've got Pluto, Johnny's Pluto, and then we've also got Tommy's Uranus and Pluto as well. So in terms of the transformation going on, I think, if I remember rightly, this was in Johnny's 2nd house of worth and values. So the transformative properties of their friendship is helping Johnny with his worth and values, but it's helping Tommy within his foundations and taking action, because the 4th house can be about taking action as well. But certainly in terms of anything that needs to change or transform, the presence of Johnny there is just helping that transformation as well. Okay, so there you have it. I thought that was just a bit different, gives you a bit of an insight, doesn't it? And to round it off, and if you're still with me, thank you so much, because I appreciate it's gone on a bit. But the closing gig, so of course I've shown you the concert on the 8th of June, which was the opening gig in Bucharest. The closing gig for this tour happened in Bethel, New York, and that was on the 30th of July. Okay, so what we have here is, of course, some of the planets are going to be in different places because it's just less than 2 months after. And don't worry, I'm not going to show you all of the charts against this one. I'm just rounding it off with this particular one as an event. But I can do another one if there's interest for it, and I can go into detail if that's something that people want to see. But, you know, just to recognise here that they ended the tour with the sun in Leo and the moon was in Capricorn. Now, the moon in Capricorn can be quite a harsh place because it's not in the moon's home. The moon's home is Cancer. So it's the opposite to that. But it does potentially get us motivated to, you know, get things done, to do things. And there's certainly some trines going on here. So I wanted to just bring your attention to that. So the first one is going from the moon over here. And then we've got Mars and Pallas over here. So Pallas is an asteroid, and it's also divine feminine energy, and it could be attributed to goddess Aphrodite, for example. But we've got Mars there with the moon, for instance, in trine. So that masculine energy of getting things done can work in harmony with the moon because there's that motivation to get things done. And of course, this gig, it was the last gig of the tour. And, you know, as much as people didn't want it to end, it's that masculine drive to kind of, right, this is the last gig, make it a good one, let's do it. So, you know, there is that energy around. And Pallas Athena supporting that with the feminine energy, nurturing that as well. We've also got a trine from the moon going down to Jupiter. Okay, so Jupiter's there in Taurus, okay, expanding when it comes to our worth and values. So again, you know, making us feel good when it comes to our worth and values, that expansion of worth and values, and knowing that Uranus is also there, recognizing where things have had to change in our lives, you know. And there is a trine from Uranus up to Pluto. So again, the change and the transformation working hand in hand. And Pluto, as you might have noticed, is in Capricorn at this point, because at the start of the tour, he was in Aquarius, but through his retrograded back into Capricorn. So really going to the depths, you know, of getting into the structures of things and, you know, transformation, deep transformation. He's in Saturn's house at the moment. So there is that sense of Pluto, Saturn and Uranus all working hand in hand in terms of change, transformation and serving up lessons, for example. So, you know, there is that trine between them, because if we know our worth and value, Taurus energy, and we know what needs to change, then that enables the transformation and vice versa. Deep transformation as a byproduct, change happens. So when we transform, because we know we need to release certain things, that gets us more in alignment with our worth and values, and change naturally happens as a result. And I feel that the Jupiter energy, again, with that worth and values, once we're becoming more clear on what our worth and values are, it's helping us with the moon energy to get things done, and also then feeds into the Mars energy to get things done, to get motivated to get things done. There may be that element of resistance, and there is this square that's actually going across to Ceres in Libra. So there may be resistance there, you know, in terms of kind of getting things balanced, or even in relationships, because Libra can represent that as well. Excuse me, but you know, it's all part of the transformation that's needed generally, excuse me. And you know, certainly at the end of this tour, emotions might have actually been a bit difficult, because, you know, people don't want it to end. So, you know, with the moon being in Capricorn, it's not the most comfortable place for the moon to be. So, you know, we can see how the energy does work for us, but think of it as that closing gig. It's bittersweet in a way. But, you know, there is that that trine as well from Ceres down to Vesta. So that's where I've mentioned about, you know, the sacred flame energy. So expansion of that. And there truly is, because, you know, they're still able to perform for that final gig, you know, and there's expansion of that energy because they are coming from that place of the sacred flame. And the expansion of the Jupiter energy, you know, with the moon okay, yes, it might be expanding that bittersweet energy, maybe feeling restricted in our emotions. We don't want it to end, but recognize actually, yes, we can get things done. We can be a bit more sort of in our masculine and just go after what we want, really. There is also a trine between Juno, okay, which is that feminine energy representative of love and marriage, and Neptune, so there is that kind of, again, feminine essence and that ethereal sense. It's water energy, there's a flow to it, so it's a feel good. To me, that's kind of like a feel good energy. So although, yes, we may be feeling a bit kind of restricted in our emotions at this point, if we're in the audience and we're like, we don't want it to end, it's bittersweet, but there's still a feel good about it because it's a great performance and there's excitement about the gig anyway. So it's still that feel good factor in that way. There is a sextile between Pluto and Neptune as well. So, there is also through this kind of spiritual, I was going to say release, but it's kind of like, because of the feel good factor going on and just that ethereal essence, it's quite magical. That's also helping the transformation. And that's the transformation that's going on within each of us in the collective. But for this particular event, focusing on perhaps those in the audience, those in the band, those in the crew, it's almost like, okay, this has truly transformed, the past 2 months has truly transformed my spiritual journey, and that sextile showing that it's a positive aspect to all of that. And I think that was all I wanted to say, because I've mentioned about the square there. So yes, I'm going to stop sharing now, you'll be pleased to know. But absolutely, without a doubt, probably, and I'm going to put myself out there and say it, the best concert I have ever been to in my life. And I went twice because it was so good. And I've experienced it outdoors in a music festival setting and indoors in an arena. Both magical experiences. And I suppose that's what the Neptune energy brings up, actually, that magical experience and how that can transform things. But as an aside, sorry. But yeah, both amazing for different reasons, because the outdoor music festival was amazing because of the proximity of being to the stage and being able to see them and just experiencing that. And then, being in an arena with all those people and the amount of love that was in the arena was just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. It was just, for me, it was just one of the highlights, or two of the highlights, because I went twice, of this year, without a doubt. But hands down, best experience. And I would recommend anybody who's even considering going to go, because it was absolutely amazing. It really was. And they were all amazing. And it was so uplifting to be able to watch them perform, to use that sacred flame energy, because that was clear in all of them. This is what they love to do. This brings them joy. This absolutely brings that fire within out, and they're performing it, they're expressing it, they're being true to themselves. And that's very inspiring to watch anyway. And of course, yes, the audience are there to watch, to enjoy it, to be in awe of them, however it is. But, they're also very appreciative of the fact that an audience is there enjoying the performance. And it's more than a performance in my view. It was an experience. It was, you're immersed in it, you're part of it. And certainly, again, for the past few years, if you've not been to a concert or many concerts, and getting back out there and doing something like this, absolutely outstanding. And it was worth the wait. I know I got my ticket when they were released, and I had to wait just over a year for it. And it was worth the wait. Let me tell you, it was worth the wait. Absolutely phenomenal. I can't say much more than that. I'd be here all night telling you how amazing it was. And as I say, you know, if you're not a follower of the Hollywood Vampires, you're not interested in one bit, first of all, thanks for sticking with, you know, this report. But, you know, if it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's it. You know, nobody has to leave negative comments or anything. Just walk on by, just leave it and walk on by. But if, like me, you know, you enjoy seeing these guys perform on stage as they have done this year, and they've truly rocked these places, they really have. And it's been a profound experience for myself, you know, and I could go into that in more detail, but I won't, because that's, you know, making it all about me. But it was profound for me. So if I had that experience, imagine how many more people who went to see them also had that experience. So what they're doing on stage, and they're being true to themselves, and they're honoring their uniqueness, and they're embracing their sovereignty as musicians, artists, performers in their own right, talented, absolutely. And they've all got that bond together that is so, you know, visible and apparent, that they're shining that light for other people. And the uplifting nature of what they do on stage, and it's not everybody's cup of tea, but you know what they're doing on stage, and they're not afraid to sing about quite difficult subjects, but they do it with gusto. And actually, you know, that inspires a lot of people, because there can be pain in certain things. There's pain in life. So the fact that they can express that, is just like, you know, as a writer myself, put pain through the writing. It's cathartic in that way, just like singing is and performing is. So they could be helping a lot of people just by being on stage, uplifting so many people, making them feel good, making them feel that they can be who they are, unique individual. So that is powerful in itself. And they deserve a massive round of applause. And they've had many, but they deserve another one. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you enjoyed this, and sorry, you know, it's probably a bit long, but I wanted to cover each of their charts to kind of show you what I saw. Hopefully you found it interesting. And, you know, if you'd like any more content like this, let me know, because, you know, it is a topic that I'm passionate about, of course. And it was just so interesting when I dived into the charts, and I suddenly thought, I could look at this, I could look at that, and more and more was revealed to me. So I was definitely drawn to doing it for a reason. But if you've not checked out that report I did on Johnny's premiere at Cannes Film Festival, then check it out. You know, that if that resonates for you, check it out. I'll pop a link below as well. But yes, until the next time, I'm sending you love and blessings, and yeah, take care of yourself, everybody, and I'll see you soon. All the best.